Interesting Bulls news regarding DeMar DeRozan dropped today, and the NBA has been at a standstill recently with the trade deadline coming up. So let's see what moves will be made possibly as we get closer there. We're going to talk about all that and more on another episode of. All right. We saw a report today that DeMar wanted 4 years, like 155 million. We did see that post get deleted about half an hour later. However, it was up for a decent amount of time. People saw it. Even if it's not true, let's talk about what we think the Bulls offseason should look like because we're not going to make much moves at the trade deadline. We're not in a position to do so.
Right.
So what do you think our dream offseason would be?
So as we know,
Or what would you do with DeMar first, I guess?
okay. Well, he's not a free agent until the year after, unlike Vucevic and Kobe
Right.
White, which need to be addressed before. But as far as DeMar DeRozan, 33-year-old DeMar DeRozan getting paid $155 million over 4 years, does any Bulls fan want to pay him 40 million when he's 37 years old? No shot. The reason why I saw the post was deleted like 15 minutes later is because I tried to go in and comment nah with a period at the end. I like no shot, right? Does anybody want that? Like
No.
he wasn't playing against the Warriors, and the Bulls are such a weird team because again, we beat another good team, a really healthy. We just beat the last year's NBA champs. Like
Without DeMar.
yeah, and they're fully healthy. I mean, Vucevic has his best game of the season. Levine doesn't even play very well. I mean, he played
He had
well,
27 on inefficient shooting though.
yeah, on inefficient shooting, right? But I mean, we looked really, really good.
Right.
Um, so I don't know. I could see maybe a lesser contract, but it's kind of it's just weird. Do we really want Zach Levine and DeMar DeRozan being the head of our franchise for the next 4 years? I don't know. I don't think so.
Exactly, because if you sign DeMar DeRozan to that deal, you pretty much say, okay, DeMar and Zach is what's going to lead us to the promised land in the next 4 years. That's not happening. We already have seen that that's not going to happen, and we know what the NBA looks like right now. The NBA is stacked. DeMar DeRozan and Zach Levine are not good enough to get it done.
No,
But
no.
so I don't know if you address DeMar this offseason. I think you don't extend him yet. I think you keep him for one more year and then you use him as a trade piece during next year's trade deadline because he will be an expiring contract, which I think to some teams is appealing, while simultaneously it's not appealing because you are giving up assets for a 1 year guy. But then
Yeah,
you also have to give him a fat contract. You get to use him for your playoff contender, win championship, and then you can either sign it for less money or go. So I
right.
think DeMar you push off for a bit.
Yeah,
Vucevic
personally,
and
I could even see us moving him this offseason. Maybe
right, which is
probably not at the deadline because again, we don't have our pick unless it's top four, which we're probably not going to get. It's not worth the risk. So I see all these Bulls fans saying we need to make all these moves at the deadline. Like
no.
we can't. It's too hard. It's too much of a risk. I mean, we can't do it.
Right.
But like
So,
you said with the Nikola Vucevic
right. That
expiring at the end of this year,
I
we're
mean, he's interesting. So I don't think we trade him, right? Like you just mentioned, but I think what we do, I think he does come back here on a on a much less contract. I mean, 22 mil right now. I think that you sign him to 2 years for $15 million, give him a player option after the first year, give him some incentives to come back for less money because he's not going to get any better. I think he realizes that he's not going to get any better in his career. So any money he can get is good. The other thing is though, other teams will offer him the similar amount that we offer him.
right.
So does he want to come back here or not? He's not the make or break guy to pay your money to. Zach Levine was because Zach Levine was worth the money because if you don't pay him, he just leaves and your franchise at a standstill
Can't
because
lose a guy like
then
that
you're
for
building your franchise around two old guys and hoping you win somehow. So
right.
Levine was the most. Vucevic is older. He's just not worth that much money. And it's the same thing with DeMar. I don't pay Vucevic more than $15 million a year. And if he walks, he walks. Just the end. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah, if the team really wants to cough up 20, $25 million for Nikola Vucevic, I mean, from what
Like
we've
we
seen,
may be my guest.
please, like, go ahead. That is not
It's
going
not
to
worth it for
be
you. It's
beneficial
not.
for you. He's
And
not
then
getting any better.
And then the Kobe White situation, I think, is interesting because he's been great recently. I think
Yeah,
he's been really good. I think that if the Bulls were to move anyone at the deadline, it would be Kobe because his value is so much higher. However,
Yeah,
since he's been so much better, do I really want to let him go? I mean, he's a guaranteed like 10 to 15 off the bench every night, a couple assists, a couple steals. I mean, he's been great. If you put him around, Kobe White's the perfect complementary piece. He can shoot, he can handle the ball, and he's getting better at not making mistakes, and his defense is so much better than it used to be. He gets switched on to
so
rough
much better.
situations,
It's still
but you
not
got him.
great, but like,
And like some of the situations where he switched on to bigger guys, it's Billy Donovan's fault because he has three guards on the floor at once.
yeah.
So
Oh,
like
exactly.
Kobe, I think I don't you're not going to be paying max money to Kobe. I think you give Kobe like a 3 year, like maybe 3 year 30, like Peter Tucker got 10
Same with
million.
that.
Is
Yeah,
that bad? No,
35.
or 3 year 36 even. I know 12 million, but the NBA gets paid higher now. 12 million is not that much money in the NBA anymore. That's a reasonable contract for a decent player. And then
So I do think personally a team would be willing to cough up some more money for a player like Kobe White. I
yes, which
think,
is where it brings
like
up
you
do we
said,
trade him
he's
or not?
under.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Do we move him at the deadline for a piece? What that piece is, I'm not really sure because we're in such a weird spot. I have been loving Kobe White's game for the Chicago Bulls a lot more lately. It's been really nice.
Agreed.
And also I moving on from players is just it's so much tougher now because we've moved on from Markkanen, All-Star now. Wendell Carter is really good now. Like all these guys just seem to leave Chicago and become so much better. They just
It's
blossom.
because, and that's just because
So
everyone gives up on players so easily now. I hear people giving up on Scotty Barnes and Evan Mobley in their second year. Like, let's relax. I think that's the thing that the Bulls need to do too. Let's slow down on Patrick Williams. Let's slow
yeah,
down on Io. They're not going to look great all the time. Not everyone comes into the league and is an immediate impact 20 point per game scorer. Not
exactly.
everyone is a Jason Tatum. Not everyone's like that. Give these guys some time, which is another reason why if I'm the Bulls and Vucevic and DeMar have to go, it's not the end of the world because we have younger pieces that are going to get better. Zach Levine's under contract. And you have to understand if we lose those two pieces, that opens up like 50, $55 million in cap space. You can,
Plus,
with that money, you can go sign two really solid. You can go sign
right.
another star. You can get that's a max contract right there. And
Yep.
I don't, and you and I both agree Zach Levine is probably a great third option and an average second option. But if you sign a max guy, Zach Levine is more than enough as a second option if you
For
surround them
sure.
with the right pieces.
Yeah, I mean, and what is the ceiling with Nikola Vucevic and DeMar DeRozan as your second, third best players? I mean, from what we've seen, it's a play-in spot. It's not great.
Exactly. Because this is our team without Lonzo Ball.
Right.
So if this is
This
what
is
we are
it.
without Lonzo Ball, and we're going to keep waiting for him to come back, then if Vucevic has to walk in that time and DeMar has to go at some point, but if you keep Lonzo and you keep Levine and you keep P. Will, you keep Io, you draft well, and you go out and sign someone, I'd rather that than try to continue with this team after this season. Keep this season going. It's
Let it
make this
ride
season
for
the
sure.
best it can be. And then after that, you just say, let's see what happens. I mean, let's make some moves. AK, it's up to you. Mark
It is.
Eversley,
Yep.
show me something. We brought you guys in, and I liked the moves they made originally. I like how they said we're trying to win now. Okay, it didn't work with these guys. What's going to work now? Go out in this offseason and say, we're still trying to win. We may have to take a year of being an average playing team again, but we're still trying to win. What makes this the best situation to win now? And go out and try again. You don't
Exactly.
have to. Not everyone in the NBA has to be contend for 5 years, then tank. You can have like the rough years in and out where you're just a playoff team. The Knicks are the perfect example. They're just a playoff team a lot, but now they're in a good position to make one more move and they could be a contender. Or RJ Barrett takes another leap, they could be a contender.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, if I'm a Bulls fan, just have some patience. This team is not what we expected it to be, but we just need to have patience.
Yeah, for sure. And there's not a lot we can do with this deadline. I mean, there really isn't. So let's ride it out and we'll go from there. We'll
Yep.
attack in the offseason.
Speaking of the deadline, not many moves have been made yet. And I think we both know that that's because there's five bad teams in the NBA that are actually tanking. The other 25 are all close to a play-in or playoff spot right now.
Yep.
which
I
means that
mean, maybe five.
a lot of teams are trying to debate, hey, do we try to keep it going? Do we sit some of our stars? Do we trade some of our better players for a higher pick, or do we see what we can do this year? And I think we'll see a lot of it. We'll know after the trade deadline what 10 teams are trying to tank and what 20 are trying to contend.
Right. I mean,
Whereas
there are
compared
only
to it being
what, like
25-5.
there are only 10 teams, maybe 10 teams over 500 right now. And like we just said, there are still 25 trying to contend. Like
Yeah.
that's insane. The level of mediocrity and just like everybody wants it this year. So, I mean, a lot of teams are going to take advantage of that this year too. Like I could see the Jazz moving a bunch of players just to
Yep.
kind of drown out, and they could get a lot of value for some of those players. A lot of teams could do that. And I think that would be a very smart move for the future, especially with this draft class coming up that's supposed to be pretty insane from what everybody says.
Right. And if
Um,
you're getting, I think in this year's draft class, any lottery pick is a great pick.
yeah,
Any lottery, and like usually it is, but any lottery pick, especially in this year's draft, is going to be regarded higher than the past like 10 to 14 guys in the years past. Because usually
yeah,
it's the first five are great guys, like projected to be, and everyone else after that is you, but you hope you find a gem after
right,
that.
right.
Like Tyrese
Yeah,
Halliburton was a gem at like 9 or 10 whenever he went.
yep,
This year, there's going to be 10 guys that are projected to be very good at the NBA. And then the next 10 are going to be the can we find a gem?
right. Yeah, you can tell that there are those first 10 to 12 guys are going to be really good. I
Yep.
saw a little mock draft last night and I was like, wow, he's 11th in the mock draft. I thought he was like really good. And it's because
Yeah.
all the guys in front of him are really good as well. So we'll see. It'll be interesting to see what some teams do too. Like, for example, Toronto. I mean, they're probably the most disappointing team in the league this year. I mean, I
Oh,
thought they were
yeah.
going to go in and be fifth, fourth seed this year, but they have just taken a huge step back. They're the 11th seed right now, out of the play-in.
I
Did
think
you
the
see that
Suns,
double with
this
Thaddeus Young and Scotty Barnes? Did you see that?
I did not, but I mean, that's just the story of their season, though. It's story
Right.
is guys not getting along, not being able to be on the same page, and then they're losing games because of it. But I think let's think about there's three teams that come to mind that are interesting at the deadline. Maybe five. I mean, Toronto's interesting. Indiana, the Pacers are very
For
interesting.
sure.
Suns are now like the 12th seed. They're an
Yeah,
interesting team. I
that would
think
be
the Thunder have the most interesting situation in the league. And then because okay, think about it this way. The Thunder are 21 and 23 right now.
they're super good.
Shea is having an MVP caliber season. He's not going to win. He's not going to be in the conversation because his team's not good enough. But he's having an MVP caliber season. Jalen Williams from Santa Clara is fantastic. He
He's
is
a
so,
very good
and
player.
Josh Giddey is the
Have
most
you seen what
underrated
he's
player in the
been
NBA.
doing?
Josh Giddey can give you 20, 10, and 10 on any given night in his sleep. He will
He
get you
he's been
10
averaging like
assists.
a 25-point triple double
Yeah.
over the last four. I
Yep.
I didn't think he had the scoring potential like that, but he really does. He's been
Yeah.
surprising.
They signed Lou Dort too to a 4-year extension, so he's there for a bit. You have Chet coming back next year anyway. So you're looking at a team, say you have Shea now, Jalen Williams keeps developing, and you have all these picks. Well, I don't know if you really need to tank this year. Because if they try and tank and don't get a top 5 pick, is it really worth that tank when you could have got your guys more experience, maybe into a playing game,
I
get some
wouldn't be
experience
surprised if they
there.
made a playing
And
game
then the
at
other thing
all.
is I think the Thunder are at the point now where you don't need to consistently just have to build through the draft. You have so many picks, so much assets, and I think a decent amount of money because they haven't a lot of these guys are on rookie deals still, that you can go out and get a guy through a trade or through a free agency to your team in the offseason. You can start building through the offseason, not just the draft, because you have the money and the assets to do so. You need one more. If Chet is half or three-quarters of what people think he's going to be an all-star.
Yep.
So if you have that with Shea, and then you go out and get someone in the offseason, I mean, your team's sitting pretty as a top 5 seed in the West.
Oh, and I believe in Chet's talent 100%. And like you said, they might have 20 first round picks over the next 4 years. They're
Yeah.
not using all 20 of those. So
And I
something is
saw,
going to happen with OKC.
and when I saw that they brought up like which picks they do have when the Bulls are playing them, and I don't remember all of them, but I said like 3 or 5 of those are insanely valuable picks that any team would trade an all-star for if you made a good package around that pick and a couple other things.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I mean, that's the Thunder situation. I mean, Indiana was another team I just brought up. I mean, what do you think they should do with Miles Turner and Buddy Hield? Because I don't know what that situation is looking like right now.
It's tough because I mean they're the 8 seed right now. They're 5-5 in their last 10. They've lost four in a row, but that's because Tyrese Halliburton is out.
Yeah.
Um, I would trade Miles Turner. I would trade
Yep.
Miles Turner for
And
sure.
Buddy Hield. I'm getting rid of both.
Yeah, no, they got to go. I mean, Benedict Mathurin doesn't even start because of Buddy Hield. I would love to see him jump into that starting role.
Yep.
Just to develop him a little more. You're not a playoff contender. You're not beating Milwaukee this year with or without Miles Turner, so you might as well move him and Buddy Hield as well. And there are a lot of teams, like I said before, who are trying to win a title this year and would love Miles Turner. He brings so much to the table that I think they could get multiple first round picks for him.
I agree. And I think Phoenix is a team that'll be interested. I think Toronto would be interested. I think the Lakers would be interested.
Yep.
And if you're Indiana, you're 23 and 21. I don't know why you would keep Heald, Turner, and Halliburton to make the playoffs this year because you're just setting yourself up to be very average for the next couple of years if you don't go out and try to lose this season. That's
Yeah.
a team that can. That's a team. If you trade Miles Turner and Buddy Hield, that team immediately becomes terrible because that loses
Yeah.
two of their huge pieces. That can get you a top five, top 10 pick in the draft this year.
Which
If
is what you're really looking for.
and with
That's
the
what
way the
everybody
lottery
says.
works now too, if as long as you're in that mix of really bad teams, you will be able to get a top five pick.
You have a shot for
You have a
sure.
shot, exactly.
Yeah.
And I don't think that keeping Heald and Turner makes you anything better than you will. I don't think you're going to sign anyone to Indiana. Who wants to come to Indiana? No one. You're not going to sign anyone in the offseason. So because of that, you're kind of in a situation where you're stuck unless you trade those two, tank, get the pick, and then you can go out and trade, make trades, sign people in the next couple of years, and you get that other guy to pair with Tyrese. Because
Yeah,
Tyrese is going to be a superstar in the league.
for sure. The more I think about it, the more they have to trade Miles Turner. I mean, he
Yep.
has to go for sure. Just makes the most sense. I think.
And then, huh?
I think the Pistons will be moving on from Bogdanovich. I think the
I think
Hornets
he's
will maybe be moving on from Rozier and Gordon
and
Hayward
Plumlee. I think
and
the
Plumlee.
Hornets should look to move Plumlee. He's been great this season. Brooklyn
That's
Nets
very true.
really need a center. They need a legit center. I mean, you could get a good deal going there. There's a lot of
Yep.
teams. I think those are the deals in the trade deadline that I like because it's rare. I know we had Harden move last year, but it's rare to see a lot of blockbuster trades around the trade deadline. There's a lot of like really solid role players though that go and sign with a contender or that can maybe take a
Mm,
average team to a contending team because it addresses what they need most.
yeah.
So
Another team that is going to sell, like I mentioned before, is Utah. They're the 8 seed right now, but they need to move on from some of these pieces. I think Mike Conley has to go. I think Clarkson might even go.
Malik
He
Beasley
declined a
should
couple
go.
of extent. Yeah, Malik Beasley maybe. They said earlier the only two guys that are untouchable are Walker Kessler and Lowry Markkinen. So
And
I
they
mean,
are
I think
so Walker Kessler is a great pickup. I can't believe the Timberwolves are so stupid. They may look back on that trade as the worst trade of all time, to be honest.
it really could be.
With
I
how
mean, the
good
Jazz are currently better than them.
If Utah becomes a championship, not even winning team, if they become a championship contender within the next 3 to 5 years, let's give them that type of time span, and the Timberwolves don't, that will look like the worst trade of all time because they crippled their franchise with talent on it. And
Yep.
then and then Ant's gonna want to leave. Cat's gonna be gone. Gobert, I mean, is stuck there.
And as much as I mean, Donovan Mitchell has been balling out in Cleveland as well, but they got a lot of value back for Donovan Mitchell. Markkanen's going to be an all-star. I love Colin Sexton's game. I think once they move on from Conley, he'll be able to fill into that point guard role really well. And then they have multiple first-round picks from them as well. So they have
Jared
that,
Vanderbilt too from
right.
Minnesota, another great guy.
They have that all these young, talented players, and then all of these picks in the future. They're in that Oklahoma City type of spot where they can just kind of sit and see what
Play the
happens.
season
Use it
out,
as
get
a
a decent
lottery game.
draft.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are. I think them and OKC are in the biggest position of power. And then the Suns are the last team quickly that I want to touch on about the trade deadline because they're 21 and 24 now because Booker's still been out and so is CP3. I think you have to trade DeAndre Ayton, right? He has no he does not want to be there at all. You can go get a first round pick for DeAndre Ayton. You can go get a nice young player. The Suns are going to have to rebuild soon because Chris Paul is just nowhere near what he used to be. And Devin Booker alone is not good enough for that team because that team really doesn't have any bench. They have no
Mm-mm.
bench,
They
and they just
don't.
have Devin Booker. And even their guys like
They
Chris
played
Paul,
Memphis last night, and Memphis's bench put up like 40 on them. I
yeah.
mean,
So
it's
that team
not a
is,
good
I
team.
think that team may have to blow it up soon. I know how we were saying, oh, it'd be crazy for them to trade Booker to net the Nets this offseason for Durant, but they're gonna have to trade Booker soon,
Yep.
or you're gonna have to get someone to come want to play in Phoenix. And to be honest, with the train wreck that I just saw in Phoenix and how many teams are good now in the NBA, I don't know if you're gonna get the biggest name free agent to come play with you and come play with Devin Booker because Chris Paul's career is over. Chris
Yeah.
Paul maybe get you
It's
10 and 10
really,
still, but it is the least impactful double double that I've ever seen.
yeah. It's really not looking good for Chris. I mean, wow, they are 21 and 24. People thought they were going to be the one seed again. I
And
mean,
yes, and I know injuries do play a role,
right, for
but
sure. Devin Booker not
they've
being there.
had problems since they started off like 14 and 7, I think it was. And
Yeah.
since then, they've just consistently been bad.
Yeah, they're 1-9 in their last 10. And obviously not having Devin Booker doesn't help at
But
all.
even before that, it wasn't like they were playing great basketball.
Yeah, I'm trying to find like a suitor here for DeAndre Ayton. I mean,
The Toronto Raptors and the
yeah.
Indiana Pacers. Those are the two teams I'm looking at.
Ooh, maybe a little Miles Turner, DeAndre Ayton swap could be it.
Because then also the Pacers, I don't think if you do get DeAndre and the Pacers will not get a top like 5 pick, but you can still get a lottery pick because I don't know if they make the playoffs even with that, especially if you let Heald go. And then you get Tyrese, a really, really competent 18 and 10 center, get a decent draft pick, and then him, Matherin, whatever draft you get in Aiden, that's a good playoff team in the next
Yeah.
couple of years.
Yeah, Indiana's in a really good spot. I'm interested to see what some of these teams like Portland is going to do at the deadline with they have this young talent in Shaden Sharp and Anthony Simons, but they also have Damian Lillard and Jeremy Grant.
I
They're
think
the
Dame's going to
trend
be on his
right
way
now.
out soon. I think
I agree. I
I also
agree.
think a lot of teams, though, this is going to be an interesting year that just wait till the offseason. I think a lot of teams are like, well, we're not going to get a top 10 pick, but we're also too
Not going to be
good,
a top
but we're
five
not going to
seed.
be right. So now we just play the season out and make the moves in the
It's a
offseason.
weird spot for sure.
The NBA is
Uh,
in a very interesting spot right now, which is
like
making it fun, but it's also making it like
it's
you have no
tough.
idea what's going to happen.
It's tough.
It's very unpredictable right
Like
now.
how much can Minnesota, the 9 seed right now, really do? You can't really move Gobert. You can't move
Right.
Cat.
But then,
You
but
obviously
it
don't move
also,
Edwards. Probably Russell, but like who wants
but
D'Angelo Russell? The
especially for
Clippers?
the value that the Timberwolves with these trades now would need to make value back from what they had to give up. And
Yep.
is anyone going to give you real good value for D'Lo? I'd be shocked. I
I
mean, you
doubt it.
robbing a team if you do that. The one move I do like though, which I think would make their team better, is D'Lo to Miami for Kyle Lowry because
I
Kyle Lowry
saw
has not
that.
been great, but Kyle Lowry would fit with Minnesota better because he is not a scoring guard. He's a veteran. He can pass the ball and he's just smart. And maybe, just maybe, he can help that team figure it out. But aside from trades and everything, the NBA postseason is going to be so good because the Warriors may be a 7 or 8 seed. But does any 1 or 2 seed want to play the Warriors in the first round?
You kidding me?
Like, would
No
you want to play the
shot.
Miami Heat in the first round as the Nets or Celtics? No, no one
No.
wants to play the Miami Heat in the first round or the Knicks. The Knicks are great right now too, and they may be a playing team. I
Yeah.
mean, there's a lot of teams in the NBA. The playoffs will be good this year because of how many teams are on the in between right now.
Right. Yeah. And oh
But
my gosh, the both conferences are super tight. The Bulls are the what, the 10th seed right now, and they're 3.5 out from the 6th seed. The Nuggets, or wait, the the Lakers are the 13 seed, and they're 3.5 back from the Clippers at the 6th seed.
right,
How crazy is that?
the the playoffs are going to be nuts this year. The trade deadline, oops, the trade deadline. I love the trade deadline. Probably the best week of the NBA during the actual season in terms of news and stuff and like huge changes.
Yeah.
And I'm very excited. But we will cover that as for sure as it gets closer, and we'll probably go check out the TikTok account, follow us. It's just beat the buzzer, because we post much more content daily on that account. So thank you guys for tuning in. We'll see you guys next time.